Well, welcome everybody. I see some familiar faces. Many of you are aging gracefully or senescing gracefully like everybody else. And we're finally back to some maybe in-person type of scenarios. Um, Most of you know me, Ray Cloyd. I handle all the horticulture and entomology at Kansas State plus everything else that's not field crop related. And so what I wanted to talk, what we'll cover in this timeline, it's going to be very, very obviously informal. Just some of the insects and that we run into, and in right here is I have extension publications which you can take, and what I did was I found some really nice containers that when the wind comes they don't blow away. It's very, I got a PhD. I can figure this out, Sarah.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
So you open it like this, and then you grab it, and then you close it. So something, John, you can even handle that, can't you? Maybe. Yeah. I got to watch out for John. He needs a little more help. But anyway, the first thing I'll mention, and of course, anybody has any questions, please let me know, is what's new in the insecticide arena relating to landscapes, trees and shrubs and turf grass. And as you know, if you're really familiar with the scenario, there's been a lot of mergers out there. DuPont and Dow are called Corteva. Bayer and Monsanto called the devil. I mean, excuse me, called Bayer now. And of course, you know, Syngenta, Chemtura. I mean, all these mergers. And consequently, as a result of that, there's been less input or emphasis on doing research or getting labels. And a lot of things out there label expansions. They're not necessarily new modes of action. But there is a new product from Bayer called Tetrino, and the active ingredient is tetranitropral. Now, if you're not familiar with this group, this is the IRAC Group 28. IRAC stands for the Insecticide Resistance Action Committee. I was a member and have been. And there's been a number of compounds that have come out. One of them is aceleprine. The other one was Sarissa, and there were several. So this is probably the fourth of that IRAC Group 28. And what these are ryanodin receptors. And what they do is they work in the muscles, and they activate ryanodin. As a consequence, calcium leaves the muscles, and the insects are kind of rigid and they can't move very well, and they just basically die and they stop feeding basically. So Tetrino is registered for it's basically a turfgrass insecticide for white grubs, caterpillars, and other listed pests. I'll leave the label up here, but I did want to let you know this is probably one of the newest of the new that we have going on right now. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll leave the label here. So let's talk about some really cool stuff. The first thing I want to talk about is bagworms. How many have had bagworm issues? Yeah, it's actually the state insect of Kansas. It's indirectly the state insect of Kansas. But the bagworms this year, we've had some really bad years the last couple of years. This is probably about the same. I don't see it any different. Because of the cool weather we had in February going into April, everything was delayed about 2 weeks. But right now it's too late. Right now what I see is the bags are going in the brown green cap stage, which means they're going to block off that top and sit there. The males then will transition into a moth, come out through the bottom, mate with the female, then he dies. The females then stay in the bags, never become a moth, and they just basically lay her complement of eggs, which is about 500 to 1,000. And that's why hand picking, it's not that bad. But anyway, really, so bagworms right now, the time to deal with them is past for using insecticides. Of course, my two favorite are BTK, and if you're from Wichita, I do apologize. But spinosad is my favorite. Spinosad is sold as conserve, is very good. It's systemic poison. I made one application in probably mid-June, and no bagworms. When those bags are 1/4 inch long, spinosad is awesome. It's one of the best materials. It's relatively safe on most natural enemies, beneficial insects and such, compared to the later materials like the pyrethroids and orthene and malathion and those and 7 that are typically very toxic to pollinators. But really, right now, the stage is beyond any use of insecticides. Okay. Any questions on bagworms? Yeah, go ahead.
When you're
Nate.
spraying the bags and they're already a little bit bigger, should you still pick them off the tree after you sprayed them? Will will the bags fall off the tree after you spray them? Or?
No, Nate's question is, if you spray right now with an insecticide, which really is too late, will the bags fall off the tree? No, the bags are there forever. They latch on. Yeah, and some people have like 3 or 4 years of bagworms on their. And that's another thing. They, when you see a bag, you have to squish it, and if it gives, it's got nothing in there, especially a male. But yeah, the bags will stay on forever. And really, the nice thing about that is, if you paint them red and white, you've got free Christmas tree ornaments. That's the way it is. You got to take advantage of some of this stuff. But no, that's too late, Nate. Yeah. Okay. So your options now are just go out there and handpick. You know, pay somebody $20 an hour and just basically handpick. You don't think that's a good idea, Sarah? Yeah. Yeah. Not now. Yeah. Okay. So bagworms. The other pests and so when you come up here, whenever you see bags which have brown pupal cases under them, that was a male bag, and that'll be empty. There will be no eggs in there. The bags that do not have the brown pupal cases, those are female bags, and those are where the 500 or 1,000 eggs will be located. Okay. So any question about and of course I did bring some of your favorites. You know, if you've never seen bagworms before, I brought some samples here. These were just recently picked off, and a lot of times people don't know what's in the bag. Well, this is what's in the bag. This is the caterpillar stage, the larval stage. And again, I got lots of samples because I collect lots of insects in my dreams and everything else. But anyway, that's my life. And then we also have, I don't know if you're familiar with, recently a new invasive bagworm came into play. Look at the size of that sucker. If you see this on your tree, you want to pull it off right away because it'll denude just one of them is enough to denude. It's actually a Christmas tree ornament somebody gave me. So I do have the bagworm extension publication here. The other pests we're dealing with, Japanese beetles. How many were dealing with Japanese beetles this year? Yeah. Nothing new. Adults feed on just about everything. They were out later because of the temperatures we experienced, but again, it boils down to, remember, the Japanese beetle has both a below ground, which is a turfgrass pest, and above ground, which they basically, insects are so efficient. They only care about 2 things, sex and food, and they do it simultaneously a lot of times, if you ever watch them. But they feed on everything, and the only way you can deal with them is basically you either hand pick them, and that's very laborious, or you have to spray. And what's really unfortunate is the means we deal with Japanese beetle today are really no different than we did 40, 50 years ago. It's still the use of insecticides like Sevin and malathion or permethrin. And of course, as you know, all of these are very harmful to pollinators. The other thing that can run into, if you continue to use orthine or malathion, you can run into what we call secondary pest outbreak. That is, you're killing the natural enemies, and later in the summertime, what can happen is you get a call, or I get calls saying, why are my euonymus bushes losing their leaves this time of year? And the problem is that you've killed so many predatory mites, the 2-spotted spider mites now become your major pest. We call that secondary pest outbreak. So when you're spraying, be very careful that you don't spray too much, and then you'll stimulate a pest problem. In this case, it would be 2-spotted spider mite. And the calls have already started to come in regarding that because people just, I know many years ago I was in Illinois, people were spraying almost every day to keep Japanese beetles off of linden. It got that bad, yeah. And really, there's really nothing new. They talk about neem oil or clarified hydrophobic extracts of neem oil, which is the actual active ingredient. It really doesn't do much. It doesn't last very long. Oils don't stay on the insect because that metallic covering. So really, it boils down to these organophosphates like malathion and orthine, carbamates like Sevin and carbaryl, and then the pyrethroids, you know, permethrin, bifenthrin, cyfluthin, all of those. But all of those are very harmful to pollinators. Bees, natural enemies, the whole gamut. Okay. Any questions about, oh, by the way, one thing is, if you buy Japanese beetle traps, give them to everybody as a Christmas present and let them put them up. Do not use Japanese beetle traps. The data, the science, and let me emphasize that, the science shows that you'll attract more Japanese beetles into an area than if you don't use them. So give them to your neighbors as Christmas present, Mike, and you'll be fine, okay? Any questions about Japanese beetles? Okay. The other insect that we've been dealing with, and probably is the green June beetle adult. How many have experienced the GJB? Yeah, flying all around. They might be still here. Those are adults, and I collected some. Those are adult males, and what they're doing, in fact, they're still in here having an orgy, basically. But those are adult males, and what they do is they hover around the grass looking for females, and when they go down and they mate with her. And then after that, the female lays her eggs, and of course, later on you'll start seeing those larvae. And if you've ever seen the larvae of a green June beetle, they crawl on their back. They do not crawl in their front legs. Okay, that's a very distinctive characteristic of them. They're not really a turfgrass pest. They feed mostly on organic matter and thatch, but people get concerned because they think they're bumblebees. And then what you might also see later on this year is these wasps or parasitoids. They're black abdomen with a yellow spot on the back of their abdomen. Those are Scalia dubia. That's a parasitoid of the green June beetle. So if you've had an area, like I said, non-managed grassy area with green June beetle adults, probably September, late September, you'll start seeing these black wasps flying around, and those are beneficial insects. The females are going to attack the larva of the green June beetle and lay an egg in her and kill it. Okay, so that's something we typically see a month or two after the green June beetle adults have done their thing on the surface. Any questions about that? Nothing yeah.
You, as a generalist rule, say wasps are generally beneficial?
The question from Dean is are wasps beneficial? I would say in most cases, Dean, yes. The exception would be the yellow jacket. But when you look at your paper wasp, your ball-faced hornet, your paper wasp ball-faced hornet, your mud dabbers and all those, they're actually good predators because they'll go after caterpillars and they'll bring them back and use it to provision their nest as a food source. Cicada killers is another example. Cicada killers grab your dog-faced cicadas, bring them down, and they basically provision their nest for the offspring. Yeah, really, I would say overall that wasp, hornets, those types we consider them beneficial insects, except for the yellow jacket. Yeah, yeah. The question from Jared, what makes a yellow jacket bad? One of the things is they will attack you, and that's number one. Yeah, and they will. They can chase people a mile. They will. The other thing about yellow jackets is they have a barb that will multiple sting you. You know that when bumblebees sting you, and those honeybees, they have a barbed stinger, and when they sting you, it stays in you, and the pump keeps pushing in venom. Yellow jackets have a very sharpened ovipositor. Females do. Remember, the males won't sting you, and they can multiple sting you. And basically, remember, some people have allergic reactions, anaphylactic shock reactions to yellow jackets and stuff because of venom. So that's why they're really you really got to take them with concern because they can be a problem. We do know they kill horses and livestock when multiple yellow jackets sting people. So yeah, they're something to watch over. They do nest in the ground. In a lot of cases we get is people are mowing, they disturb the yellow jackets and they come out and they just sting. Well, this time of year you're not wearing much clothes, and you're susceptible to stings. Yeah, yeah. Good question. Yeah. Any other questions about really? And then the last group of pests are the scales. How many deal with scale insects on your trees and shrubs? Well, I have an extension publication regarding scales. Remember, there are two types of scales. There are the soft scales, and those are the ones that produce honeydew, and that's where black sooty mole will grow on. And then you've got ants and other things that are attracted to the honeydew because it serves as a carbohydrate source. Then you got the hard scales. Anybody give me an example of a soft scale? What is that? No, mealybugs are mealybugs, Dean, but soft scale. Well, examples of hard scale like cottony maple scale would be an example. Magnolia scale is a big problem. How many in Kansas City? We've been working with people out there. Magnolia scale is not bad. It's a soft scale thing. Pine tortoise scale on Christmas trees, things like that. Brown soft scale in interiors, and then of course the Lacanium scale, which I have is also the soft scale. Okay. Then the hard scales are those that don't produce honeydew. Consequently, you have no ants, you get no black sooty mold, and I'm sure you know some hard scales, right? Give me some hard scales. John?
Hermes oak scale.
Kermes is a soft scale.
Oh, okay.
So, but nice guess, yeah. Yanima scale. Yanima scale is a hard scale. Another one? Oyster shell scale and pine needle scale. Those are all, and I got some over there example. Those are all hard scales, of course. Hard scales tend to be more host specific, but again, they don't produce honey. So what's that mean? It means that systemic insecticides, and everybody, does everybody know what a systemic insecticide is? You apply it to the soil and you water it in, and the plant takes it up and it moves in the phloem. Well, remember that systemic insecticides are effective against soft scales, but not hard scales. Okay, so that's why it's always important to diagnose what type of scale it is, especially if you're going to utilize some insecticide like a systemic insecticide, any of your neonicotinoids, xylam, dimeteffuron, imidacloprid, orthene, things like that. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that? How are we doing on time? About right time? Yep. Thanks, Jeffrey. Well, I guess at this point, if you wanted to, I'll give it. Oh, the other insect we have right now is lace bugs. How many are seeing lace bugs on oak and sycamore, azalea, rhododendron? I mean, and they're all, and hackberry. They're really nailing hackberry, which is beautiful because hackberry is basically a boring plant, but when you get hackberry nipple gum maker and lace bugs, it's actually beautiful. But basically, lace bugs are, and they're feeding the leaf underside, oaks, and they're really not causing much problem. They're usually attacking a large tree, and you'll see green lace wings attacking the lace bug. So if you see that, and it's really too late to do anything because you're not going to correct the damage. But right now, lace bugs are doing my walkabouts are the ones that I pretty much see are prevalent. Yeah. So if any questions regarding anything else? So I have extension publications on scale insects, Japanese beetle bagworm, oak leaf itch mite, turfgrass pests, and pesticides and bees. And you are welcome to grab them and also look at the display. I've also got redbud leaf folder, which is out right now on Cercis, and fall webworm will start coming out. The second generation will start being, and mimosa webworm's out right now. How many have seen their honey locust brown and with webbing? That's the mimosa webworm damage. So
Will this be here during lunch or?